The Center for Early Sapiens Behaviour presents a sneak peek of their 2020 experimental field season. 6 researchers from the University of Bergen participated. During the experiments, a comprehensive setup was implemented. Multiple fire experiments were conducted over a period of 3 weeks. In this video, we will tell you all about it and show you some of the experiences we had. Let's start with the Sandbox setup. These were pre-made boxes that we could easily construct. The boxes were carefully designed and could be reused in future projects. Here you'll see some close-up shots of their construction. Once the sandboxes were ready, they were filled with industrial sand. Natural beach sand was then placed on top of the industrial sand. We then placed a temperature probe at 10 centimeters depth. Holes drilled on the side of the box allowed us to insert the probes at regular intervals. Once inserted, we connected them to a recording instrument. After the probes, we placed different types of artifacts. In this experiment, we placed ostrich eggshell, owl pellets, and microfauna. We then added another 5 centimeter layer of sand. Time for placing the second probe at 5 centimeters depth, followed by placing another set of artifacts. Finally, we added another layer of sand. In the next section of this video, we will take a closer look at the specific setup we used in experiment number 4. Let's start by looking at the preparations. At 10 centimeters depth, we placed shellfish. At the same depth, we also placed ochre, shellfish opercula, ostrich eggshell, and microfaunal remains. At 5 centimeters depth, another set of shellfish was distributed. And another set of ochre, opercula, ostrich eggshell, and microfauna. Here are some close-up photos. On the surface, we placed a carpet of owl pellet. Also scattered on the surface was a final set of ochre and ostrich eggshells. Now, let's light the fire! In this time-lapse video, you will see 4 kilograms of firewood being lit and fully burnt. The fire was not refueled. Using the probes, temperatures were automatically measured at 4 locations every 5 seconds. During this experiment, we learned several things. Turns out, owl pellets burn poorly. Even with temperatures above 600 degrees Celsius, they hardly caught fire. The microfaunal bones inside the pellets turned black. Here are some still shots of the fire after it had burnt out. Let's move on to the documentation phase. We first collected 2 micromorphological block samples. The blocks were made by pouring epoxy resin into sampling tubes. We let the resin harden before we recovered them. Before excavating the fire, we used a sheet of glass to stabilize the midsection profile wall. Finally, time for excavating the sandboxes. We started by excavating the left side where the block samples are located. Excavating tiny and fragile microfaunal bones requires a lot of patience. It is important that they are recovered without breaking off any of their diagnostic traits. Did I say a lot of patience? Here you can see a shot of the west side of the fire, after the top ash layer had been removed. Below it, we observed reddish and dark sediments. This layer, which was distributed directly below the outline of the original fire, was then carefully removed. Here you see some photos of the base of the hearth after the dark layer below the ash had been removed. At this stage, it was time to collect the block samples. Now, let's excavate the other side. The stages of excavation were similar to what we have already seen. First, removal of the ash layer, exposing a darkened substrate. At 5 centimeters depth, the first artifacts started to emerge. I will now go through our procedures for recording the 3D location of the artifacts we recovered during excavation. First, the 3D locations of all artifacts were precisely recorded using a total station. Secondly, all exposed surfaces were documented in 3D using photogrammetry. The experiment was documented before, during, and after the fire. We did the 3D processing in Agisoft Metashape. Here is one example of the final results, showing a series of superimposed, 3D reconstructed surfaces recorded during the different stages of the experiment. During the excavation of the hearths, we also took conventional notes and photos. Here are some close-up shots taken during excavation of in situ artifacts. After their location was recorded, the artifacts were put into fine bags for later analyses. This process is similar to the excavation protocols implemented at many Stone Age excavations. The glass sheet was removed when sand on both sides had been fully excavated. At the end of the experimental field season, the industrial sand at the base of the box was removed. The boxes were then dismantled. You have now been watching a video presentation of the Sapiens Experimental Field Season 2020. For more information and results, be sure to watch the XARC Hotspot Session 3 hosted by the University of Bergen. The participants of the Sapiens Experimental Field Season 2020 were Celia Benson and Turi Hillestad Nell, Ula Unhammer and Magnus Holland, Jovana Milic and Elizabeth Bellamy. Also of great assistance to us were Simon Armitage and Karen Anderson-Dahl. Thank you for watching.